Welcome, everyone. The Old Main bells have just rung at 4 o'clock, and we are here. You're coming in, so I'm going to take my time as you are coming into this alumni career conversation today, careers in consulting. We have three amazing alumni with us, so we're really excited to hear about their career journeys, and we will get rolling. So again, good afternoon and welcome. This is the final panel of the spring semester, and we are in the last week of classes here at Penn State. So good luck to all you students that might be on this call. Great job budgeting your time and being here for this panel because it's going to be a good one. And my name is Dana Wanger. I am the Student and Alumni Relations Coordinator and a career coach here in the Career Enrichment Network in Liberal Arts. I am happy to be joined by our Career Enrichment Network intern, Paris, who will be graduating in December with an undergraduate and a graduate degree in architectural engineering and a Bachelor of Science in French, minors in international engineering, math, and entrepreneurship and innovation. Anything else you could do, Paris. Thank you for being here. And Lauren Grenice is our assistant director, and she's going to be here as well. And she'll be adding some links and resources in the chat and also helping us monitor the Q&A. But again, before we begin, just want to take a moment to thank Michael, Abby, and Lily. They are very busy. They are very advanced in their careers and taking time to volunteer for this panel. We truly appreciate them being here. It's one thing for you to come in and meet with a career coach or talk to somebody, in your classes or professors, but to talk to somebody working directly in the field that you may be interested in entering can be great. So we encourage you to ask those questions today. We're going to read through their bios so you get to know a little bit about them. And after that, we will jump right into the question and answer. So, Paris, I will turn it over to you to read our first panelist bio.
Abby Luke is a proud Penn State College of Liberal Arts alumna who graduated in 2020 with dual degrees in psychology and political science. After graduation, Abby spent over 5 years at Deloitte Consulting, where she supported state government clients in change management, strategic communications, stakeholder engagement, and training design and delivery. Abby recently joined O'Meal Consulting, a woman-owned consulting firm based in Conshohocken, PA, that supports clients in the health, wellness, and plant-based medicine industries. Welcome, Abby.
Hey, Lily Scanlon is a 2007 graduate of Penn State, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts in History, International Politics, and International Studies. Lily currently serves as an associate partner, Salesforce Effectiveness within the professional services consulting industry. Lily has distinguished herself through her ability to drive significant client impact and business growth. Notably, she played a key role in securing an $8 million build out on existing work with a client whose chief revenue officer cited her contributions as one of the primary reasons for winning the work, calling it the best consulting he's ever seen. Awesome. Welcome, Lily.
Thanks.
Michael
Pleasure to be here.
Michael Bechet is a 2016 graduate currently residing in Washington, D.C., who brings nearly a decade of consulting experience. He holds undergraduate degrees in economics and CAS, a master's degree in organization development and change, as well as an MBA from Georgetown's McDonald School of Business. Michael currently is a senior strategy consultant at Deloitte, primarily supporting U.S. federal government clients and nonprofit organizations in undergoing strategic transformation to drive bottom line growth and enhance competitiveness regardless of market conditions. Internally at Deloitte, he has supported teams effectively prepare and respond to changes within the federal government, articulating how the federal government's priorities and the legislative environment impact federal agencies and the consulting industry broadly. Prior to Deloitte, Michael also worked for Accenture, where he led teams to support technology strategy, organizational effectiveness, and large-scale IT implementations across numerous government clients. Welcome, Michael. And now we're going to move on to the first question. Could you all please tell us about your current position and how you may have decided on your career journey?
I could start here. So thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. Exciting conversation topic. I'll open with saying I'm still not sure I want to be in consulting. I'm still not really sure who I want to be when I grow up. I'm in my 40s now. I hopefully we'll figure it out at some point, but here we are. So for those of you who are dialing in or listening to this on recording, just know this is it's a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. There'll be days where you think to yourself, gosh, I love what I'm doing. And there'll be days you think to yourself, I should probably find a new job. I don't like this anymore. So just know, like, those days happen. We're all still figuring it out. In terms of my current role, I'm an associate partner at a professional services firm, specifically at Aon, in our Salesforce effectiveness practice, which means we specialize in sales organizations and salespeople and sales job roles and help salespeople get paid. So it's like very niche. So I have both a delivery requirement. So I'm working client projects. I'm emailing right now, trying to set up meetings and whatnot for later this week to talk about very sensitive topics. And I'm also responsible for business development. So I'm not responsible for finding the work that our team does. And then when we do get it, I'm in the project, I'm managing it, I own the client relationship and whatnot. So been a bit of a journey to get here. Fresh out of undergrad, I started actually in the not-for-profit space. It's like a consulting firm. We consulted to the Jewish community on how to be more inclusive. Then spent a few years doing a few other things, including business school. And then after business school, started in consulting first with Gallup Consulting, then Korn Ferry in our Salesforce effectiveness practice, and now Aon in our Salesforce effectiveness practice. So it's been a journey. I can't say every step some steps have been more intentional than others, but I've always grown from each of those things.
And I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Mache. Unlike Lily, I apparently always knew that I wanted to be in consulting. I actually come from a consulting family. My dad was a partner at KPMG, and then he started his own consulting firm. And apparently, when I was a little kid, 5-year-old me said I wanted to be a consultant, not an astronaut, not a firefighter. It was a consultant. So I guess that made it pretty easy when I was older and started to realize things. I was in between finance and consulting. Wasn't quite smart enough for finance, wasn't quite ready to move to New York City, more than likely. So got a role at Accenture that actually ended up with me living in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for a little bit before moving down to DC in 2020. And right now I'm working at Deloitte in our strategy practice. So I am working with a government client to really do like an overarching strategy project. I'm thinking how they are reaching their patrons currently, how effective are they in their budget management, what are the different products and services that they have, what do they look like, and then how do we kind of start to redesign that organization potentially, and what are those recommendations to the client. So excited to be here.
Awesome. And I can close us out. Hi, everyone. My name is Abby Luke. I graduated, well, I guess this already was shared by Paris, but studied psychology and political science at Penn State. So similar boats to all of you with a liberal arts background, and coming out of undergrad, I really was passionate about my political science major and kind of saw myself working in the government and nonprofit space. So most of my internships in undergrad were kind of generally in that sphere. And then as I approached graduation, I learned more about government consulting and kind of saw it as this good middle ground for me between, some of the perks of working in the private sector, but still getting to do that really impactful government work that I was really eager to do. So I joined Deloitte out of undergrad and spent about 5.5 years there, working with different state government clients in our human capital practice. So did everything from stakeholder engagement to strategy projects, training, and really enjoyed kind of the public sector impact I was able to make in my time there. And actually within the past month, I have transitioned into a new role at a smaller consulting firm called Alumni. Was really ready to take the next step of my career and be in a bit of a smaller place that's more focused in kind of the set of services and to kind of help me specialize and take the next step in my journey. So that's where I am now. So I don't have a ton to talk about because I literally just started 2 weeks ago, but super excited about the company and the culture at a smaller firm. So that's a little about me. Great to be here with you all.
Thank you, Abby. It's just wonderful to hear as we talk to students all the time about career pivots, knowing what you want to do. At what point are you going to all of a sudden have the light bulb go off? That's going to go on forever. So congratulations on your new role, Abby. What type of advice can you provide to students aspiring to enter? I'm guessing this is a competitive field in consulting where you are all working. What type of advice could you give to students? Anyone want to start with that one?
Yeah, happy to start with that one. So really, if you're looking to get a role in consulting, I think the first most important thing is really, and it's something we're all really good at Penn State, is really start to embrace networking. A lot of what we do in consulting is meeting with clients, meeting with your team, meeting with other people in your organization, right? So to kind of get yourself that next role, because we are a project-based industry here, right? To get yourself that next role, you really want to know as many people as humanly possible, have good relationships with those people, follow up with those people. So networking is super important. And really, you got to be hungry and you got to be a sponge, right? So you have to, by being a sponge, you have to absorb as much information as humanly possible, right? So pay attention as much as you can in meetings, ask as many questions as humanly possible. There's no dumb questions. You'll hear that your whole entire life. And really be hungry, right? So always be that person who asks for more work, right? Don't just sit around and wait for work to come to you. Those are just some of the quick things that I can think of.
Something I would add, and I always tell this to students coming from a liberal arts background, because that's at least how I felt, is, it can be intimidating to think that, from liberal arts, maybe you don't have the preset background for consulting. But I always tell students, like, there really isn't a set background, and lean into your strengths and the uniqueness on your resume through the interview process, because, skill sets that you might not typically associate with consulting or business really are transferable, because I think some of the most core skill sets to consulting are like those soft human skills of like strong writing, strategic thinking, problem solving, things that all should really come to you all pretty naturally as liberal arts students. So I would say just, lean into the fact that you might have a different set of strengths and skill sets, but I think that's actually what's going to make you stand out when you're thinking about interview processes and looking for a role in consulting.
Say the two pieces of advice I'd offer is one, always be curious, always be learning. So much about being consultant is that you're constantly being put in a position to be an expert on someone else, on something else, on another industry, whatever it is. And the best way to do that is to be curious, ask questions, learn, however you do it, right? Some of us learn through relationships, some and asking, have conversation. Some of us learn through AI and Googling and searching online and reading books and all of that. So I'd say one is, right, and that's major agnostic, right? No matter what you're studying in school, you got to be open to learning and being curious about what's next. And then I'd say second is, and this is a little bit of building off what Abby said, there are so many different types of consulting. Like one of the things that I've really come to appreciate in my journey is I'm constantly being exposed to new types and areas of consulting. So for example, in Aon, the way that we're structured, and I'll do this very briefly, is we've got a human capital practice that has health, wealth, and talent. So two more financial related things like 401ks and health insurance and all that. And then there's a talent practice. And within that, I think there's like 15 different practices, everything ranging from exec compensation, which might have more of a business or finance lens. So it's a little harder to get there from liberal arts, but it can be done. I've seen it happen, to things like talent assessment, right? People with an IO psychology background or leadership background or studying history and how people think and are wired, operate. There's that side. There's org design, org development, right? There are probably 20 different practices all different types of consulting. And so, yes, you've got 3 types of consulting on the line right now, but there are boutique firms, there are big firms, there are niche firms. Don't feel like you've got to go get just the Aon or the Deloitte job, right? There are wonderful boutiques like Abby's now a part of that can help you think more broadly than you might be right now consulting.
That was all really great advice. Now we're going to move into the next question, which is, what were some of the most valuable resources at Penn State?
So I think for me, honestly, like the resume resources were probably the most helpful. It's shocking out there how many people are not that great at writing resumes. And Penn State really does provide a lot of the resources for you to improve your resume writing. I think that is one big piece there. The consulting club is also really important. I don't think they are limited to only business school students. So it's important to say that. But you will get a lot of case information because when you go into your interviews, they will put you in little different perspectives, situations that you have to start to answer, and you have to start thinking like a consultant. So that case material that the consulting clubs have are really, really good to help put you in the right mindset. And then finally, your friends, right? If you have any friends that graduated recently who went into consulting, if anyone in your family works in consulting, ask them, talk to them, to build off of what Lily and Abby were saying, being able to go into an interview and have a conversation with a recruiter and showcase that you do know about consulting, really helps set you apart in the long run.
I would say for me and resources, and Dana and Lauren, I can be your paid actor on this, but I really do think the liberal arts career enrichment network has really great resources available. I remember in my senior year attending multiple events that were hosted, and just at Penn State we have the luxury of so many great companies coming to campus and hosting events where you can have that face-to-face time. So definitely taking advantage of all of those different opportunities that are available to you, and working with the Career Enrichment Network, having your resume reviewed, which I think is still a precursor to even being able to apply through the portal. Is that right, Lauren, that you all do a resume review? But, taking advantage of all of those resources that are just built into your liberal arts experience, is what was really helpful for me.
So I just put our website into the chat. Anyone, you don't have to sign up. Actually, we removed any type of sign up through any portals. So you would just log in through Nittany Lion Careers, and take a look at some of those different opportunities. So thanks for the shout out, Abby. I appreciate it.
All right, so I graduated, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago at this point. So a lot of what's in place now was, as far as I know, not in place when I was an undergrad. So full caveat here, I'll say this is, I think, the second liberal arts panel I've been a part of in the past 10 years. And so what I'll say is there's clearly amazing resources within the School of Liberal Arts and Liberal Arts Enrichment Network, or whatever the titling is. So what I'll say is tap into that, because I don't know, I didn't have that, wish I had. Here it is, excellent. I did engage with not what was that? My advisor, as I think is what the terminology was then. I don't know what it is now. He helped me think through kind of not just what I want to do when I graduated, but what I did not want to do when I graduated. I thought that was a really helpful conversation. And then something that's, I think, was already highlighted here in this conversation, but I'll say it again, is the Penn State Network. If you are curious, or you have questions, or you're not sure, or you just want to tease some things out with someone, tap the Alumni Network. Tap some of your friends' parents might be alum. You could reach out to the School of Arts and the folks that they know, LinkedIn, Lion Link, like there's so much out there that you don't have to start from scratch. And we're all happy to have a conversation with you to think through some things as you figure out whatever next steps might be for you or first steps might be for you professionally.
Wonderful, thank you. And Lauren, thank you for adding into the chat some different links. So students that are on the call, please take a look. And please post any questions you may have for our panelists into the chat as soon as you can, into the Q&A, because we're going to keep asking our questions, but we'd rather ask yours if you have some particular ones. But the next question I'm going to ask is, what do you see as an entry level position in the consulting field? And or does your company have an internship program? Like, how did you get started? And I don't know if anybody wants to start with that one, Abby or Michael.
I'll go ahead and speak from the Deloitte perspective then. So Deloitte actually currently has a summer scholar program. So that is for juniors. So that is our internship program. That is available to both government and public service, which is our primarily federal client facing practice, as well as our commercial practice. So that is helping companies more often, right? In the offerings of business strategy, technology, software engineering, finance, cyber, and a couple other things as well. You'll basically be put on a quick client engagement for the summer. That is generally how the summer internship program goes. I actually got my start. I did not have a internship in consulting coming out of school. And I just got my first job with Accenture. That brought me to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and really was able to learn a lot about consulting really quick. I was on client site every single day, learning from everyone, and that kind of treated itself to being my own internship experience in a way. I quickly realized I loved consulting. I loved getting out there, solving different client issues. And yeah, stuck with it ever since.
I'm in here. So I've only been with Aon for a year, so I'm not 100% sure what our internship options are. I don't think we have one. Don't quote me on that. I don't think we do, but again, I'm still getting my bearings here at Aon. I know that Korn Ferry did not they had a very specific one in a very specific financial space, but I don't think they did. And then the time that I was employed there, I don't think I had an internship in undergrad. I did lots of other stuff. Oh no, I did. I did one on the Hill, and I did not like it because I knew I didn't want to be on Capitol Hill. So I was an international politics undergrad, did an internship on the Hill, unfortunately confirmed for a fact that I did not want to intern on the Hill, but I did not have a consulting internship. My first consulting gig, again, first job out of undergrad, I worked for a small not-for-profit in New York City that they consulted to the Jewish community, so to other not-for-profits, and I was a program manager there. So I did not have the consulting internship experience. I will say that it's can be very helpful. And if you haven't had the internship experience and you're a senior, my recommendation is, again, work the network. There are a lot of opportunities right out of undergrad that you don't necessarily need to have had an internship, and that, right, work your network, build the resume. I think Michael brought it up of writing a great resume could be a game changer, and that'll help you get your foot in the door.
Yeah, and I'll jump in similar to Lily and Michael, no consulting internship, but landed my first position at Deloitte straight out of undergrad with the support of the Career Enrichment Network. So definitely there are a lot of entry-level positions and opportunities at larger firms. At my current company now, generally the model is they're looking for people that have several years of experience at larger firms under their belt, just so they have really those core consulting skills and the client experience to be able to jump right in and just with the size that we're at. So, and I think that's kind of a common thing too throughout the industry is, getting that larger firm experience is really good to have under your belt entry level, because then you can really pivot in any direction, whether it's a smaller firm, whether it's going into industry. So yeah, that's kind of what my trajectory was and how I arrived here.
And one last thing to add, especially around the internship experience, definitely keep up on what the timelines are. So going into next school year, all the consulting firms, it doesn't matter if it's Deloitte, Accenture, KPMG, EY, you name it, any of the big players, right? They all have very regimented timelines, and they start early in the academic year. So, as soon as you get back in August, start looking, go to career day, right? They usually have some events, not only with the liberal arts college, but in SMEAL, right? So get involved with those as well. Really to start, learning what those timelines are and just make sure you don't miss any of those timelines, because if you do, you're probably out. So.
My next question for all of you is, what are the most encouraging parts of your work and what do you love?
I can chime in here first. So what do I love? I think here's what I'll say. I think you'll likely hear is a lot of the answers from any consultant will say they'll say what they love is a little bit different, right? Person by person. There are different things that draw us to this work, maybe our strengths profile, maybe what we find most engaging. But for me, what I love about consulting is that consulting is a team sport, right? So often, and there are boutique firms of one, so it could be done. But so much of it is a team sport. Like you do it as a team, you tackle really tough things as a collective. You draw on different people's strengths to get excellent work done, including the client team, right? Or it's not just the consultants. You're doing all the heavy lifting, right? We rely a lot on the client to say, hey, send us data, send us information, give us your perspective, let us test or troubleshoot things with you. So for me, I'm someone who's drawn to teamwork, and so that's an aspect of consulting that I really loved. Is that, and then two, I did a long story short, a sales leader executive assessment readout a few weeks ago. So what that means is that we did a talent assessment, if you will, of sales leaders in an industrials environment, an industrials firm, and we were assessing their sales leadership capability as sales leaders within that firm. And I was sitting down with their CHRO and some of their senior vice presidents, and we were talking about the results of the assessment and like, what does this mean for them, and what does this mean for succession planning, and how do they create better L&D or experiences to help bring some of this talent along to set them up so they could be sitting in those seats someday, and what did we hear that maybe they hadn't thought of or wasn't on their radars. And just like it was 2 hours, it was very intense, ton of data, but an excellent, it was the discussion. And it's moments like that where you can sit down with senior executives and have really strategic conversations about what they're doing with, in this case, their people, their sales leadership, that's going to have long-term impact to that organization. So those are some things that really fuel me.
Yeah, I would add in something that Lily kind of alluded to earlier is I love the aspect of just continuous learning that comes with consulting. I feel like people say this a lot, but it is true where you don't usually have days that are similar. Every day you're doing something different. Every project is a new challenge, sometimes a totally new type of client. I mentioned at the beginning that I was working with state government, and now my new role, I'm shifting and working with pharmaceutical companies, which is going to be a completely different landscape. But I think it's just exciting and dynamic to be able to, really learn a different industry, those unique challenges, but being able to bring your own perspective to it is just super energizing and something that I enjoy is that you can always kind of be pivoting and having that curiosity and continuing to learn new things.
Yeah, and for me, it's really the opportunity to make a positive impact. It's a little bit different on what space you're working in, right? So, if you're working for the federal government, in some places you might be able to see the work that you're doing have a positive impact on day-to-day society, right? There are other times when you are working on something that will never see the light of day, but it is equally important for the continuity of the United States, right? And then likewise with a commercial client, right? You get to be working on things that might make the news, right? You see the impact of the work that you have down the line, and hopefully it doesn't get put up on the shelf and thrown away for a little bit. But as I think for me, that positive impact thing is probably the most important.
Chime in with one more thing that I want to build off what Michael said. So oftentimes what happens in consulting is people will then pivot and go in-house or in the industry, or right, they'll go from strategy consulting to working in-house consulting for any kind of firm. And so one of the reasons I haven't pivoted in, because I think this is something that I really find what I love about my job, is so one is we don't get stuck in the bureaucracy. Like even on the federal consulting side, they won't be stuck in the internal corporate bureaucracy that if you're in-house, like doing an in-house HR job or or employee relations or whatever it is, right? There's a level of day-to-day bureaucracy that you're just in minutia that you get stuck in that we don't have to deal with. And yes, we have a little bit of our own company. Yes, but mostly we get to skip that part. And that's awesome. And it's one of the reasons when people do flip from consulting in-house or in industry, they flip back. They say, I don't want to deal with the minutia and the bureaucracy. I'd rather be on the consulting side.
Wow, what great insights. Definitely, that's some good tips there for sure. Okay, we do have a question in the Q&A. And the question is, I'm considered a non-traditional student because of my age. I will be graduating with an HR background in learning and development, but am interested in psychology in the workplace. The liberal arts degree is in psychology. I worry I don't have the appropriate skills for consulting, but feel like I'm doing it in my everyday work. Any advice?
That's a that's a really good question. Um, if you already feel like you're doing a lot of the different things a consultant would do, right? We've talked about resumes a little bit here, and really showcasing in your resume that you have the ability to, this is a very consulting term, wear a lot of different hats. That you can take essentially whatever topic is thrown your way and you can figure it out and you can make an impact that leads to, some deliverable being done, some positive impact whatsoever, right? I think that is probably the best way that I could think of, Lily, Abby.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, something I mentioned earlier is there may be things you're doing where it you do feel like, and once you get into the job, you're like, oh, I was doing this all along. And as an undergrad, I was also involved in IO Psych and was in an IO Psych lab. And there's a lot of IO Psychs in consulting if that's kind of the path that you're thinking about with your HR background and thinking about psychology. But I'm sure there's things you're doing if that is the sphere you're in, whether it's, you're working for a research lab, doing surveys or interviews or focus groups and doing that data collection. Like that's so much of what we do in consulting is, we come in, we collect data, we synthesize, and then we diagnose problems. So if that sounds familiar to you and that's kind of in line with a lot of what you're doing in your HR background in psychology, like there definitely are transferable skills there. So to Michael's point, like leaning into that in your resume to really tell that story. Because if you're feeling like it's something that you're already doing, it probably is. So I think just, leaning into that and, so many consulting firms have practices in organizational design, talent strategy, HR, like it's so much of what consulting firms do. So there's definitely, a home for you there.
I think that's spot on, Abby. I'm thinking about what is it, not just I want to get into consulting, but what type of consulting? What do I want my day to look like? What sort of problems might I want to be tackling, right? There's um, right, talent assessment, IO psychology, org design, you could be doing, there's just, we do HR consulting, right? There are firms that say I was speaking with someone today that they're technically a contractor. They work for a consulting firm, but they are a contractor to another organization and they help on, I think, OD related or development related things. So if you feel like you're already doing it, what will likely happen in your interview is that person will say, show me, tell me about a time when you X, Y, or Z, right? And they're going to ask, give me the examples of me seeing you doing this in practice. To Michael's point around show me in your resume, show me that you're already doing these things. And if you feel like you don't have them yet, start to identify what do I think is missing or work with alum or career services or the team here on the line to figure out what does need to show up in my resume to show that I'm doing these things so I can either find a way to capture it or go get some experience so I can say I worked in this lab, I worked on these focus groups, this is what I was doing, because you probably are doing it. It's just a matter of how you're communicating it, and then do you have the examples to back it up, and then are you looking at the right sort of firms that fit with the type of consulting you want to do.
Moving into our next question, what is something that you all wish you did differently in your career journey?
Everything and nothing, right? I think I'll chime in here. I think mine's been the most varied, but I'm also I think the oldest person on the call so far. So, um, right, undergrad in international politics, international studies, and history. And then I went and worked as a program officer in a consulting firm to the Jewish community, was there for 2 years, moved to DC, I was the director of a charity endurance program. So like our runners ran races and triathlons and raised money for our cause, which was autism research. I went to business school and then bang, 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 consulting. But even the nature of my consulting has looked different. And one of the things that I appreciate so much about my boss now, not to say my other bosses wouldn't have said this, but yeah, after being here for a year, he said, I so appreciate the fact that you have such different experiences and background. You ask such smart, interesting questions that the other folks on our team don't even think of because they're all from a very similar background. Some electrical engineers, some finance, some were business. He's like, we just love how you think. We love how the questions you ask. We love the breadth that you can work across NHR or across area that I don't think I would be able to do that had I not had the career I've had. Were there bumps along the way? Sure. Do I have bad days because I feel like I haven't had certain experiences? Sure. But I don't know. Trust the process. So much of your first job is finding out what you, in case you're Michael and knew it at 5 that you wanted to be a consultant, is finding out what you don't want to do. And so embrace that too. And that's the beauty of consulting is that you find out what kind of clients, projects, work, teams you do and do not want to work with. So kind of a non-answer of every day there are things I regret. I wish I'd gotten better at Excel. Like, oh man, now I'm in my 40s and it almost feels like it's too late because I'm not using it in my everyday. So why would I go learn it now? I don't use it. But there are absolutely times I think to myself, it would be really helpful if I could just build that Excel, even though it may not be my primary job responsibility.
Yeah, and I wish I was quicker to jump the ship, right? And that's not just in a career path, right? So like, at work, I was very afraid to leave my very first project because it felt very comfortable to me, right? That then changed into me moving for the first time. I was very afraid to do that, right? I was very afraid to move companies for the first time. But really, the first time is the hardest time. So if you get yourself over that hurdle, it's a lot easier to start having those different viewpoints, right? And I think this builds really nicely with Lily is, you can only get those different perspectives and the ability to ask those different questions if you are not afraid to take risks, right? So, make those tough choices because I wish I did sooner. Also, just another thing that I wish I learned is like find out what your company, your future company, what their benefits are, all the fringe benefits too, right? And learn to take advantage of those, right? Because that can help set you up really well as well.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to what Lily and Michael said. I feel like I'm also kind of on the boat where, I feel like the journey and some of the choices, whether maybe there's some you regret a little bit, it's what brings you to where you are today. I would just say maybe something I would have done differently is just having less imposter syndrome. I think especially fresh out of undergrad and coming into a role in consulting, I was very intimidated and, was worried if am I gonna have the right skill set? I don't know Excel very well. What is this gonna look like for me? And I think so much of it is, bringing a point of view and being willing to speak up and share your perspectives and show how you think differently than others. So I think like cutting through some of the imposter syndrome and just, leaning into the way you think and being vocal. I think that's maybe something I would do differently and something I would encourage all of you as you're starting your careers to lean into as well.
Amazing. And just, I've been taking notes and just, moving companies, making tough choices, taking risks. It gets easier. Maybe the first time's hard doing that. What would you change? Everything and nothing. And, all those experiences along the way and just thinking that you belong where you are and giving it a chance and not being afraid of where you are. So thank you for all that wonderful insight. We have one more question here in the Q&A. I am an accounting and economics student hoping to become a CPA and go into consulting. Will be participating in a case competition and joining the different consulting groups on campus help this person stand out in an application? Or what else could they do to stand out?
I can chime in first as someone who did a lot of resume reviews. I think something that always stands out, regardless of what type of organization, is leadership positions. We're looking for students that, have some level of responsibility, leadership opportunity, whether it's student government or a consulting club or something completely unrelated. If we're seeing that you lead a team and you're in kind of the driver's seat in whatever organization you're a part of, that is definitely something that jumps out to us when we're looking at potential candidates.
Yeah, I think, getting involved with those clubs, right? Having those leadership positions are important, like Abby said. But really, don't be afraid to embrace something unique, right? And put something unique on your resume. We talked a little bit about internships and how none of us have consulting internship experience. I worked at PSECU, the credit union on College Ave for a while when I was in school, right? And I worked at a startup incubator over in the public library, right? So, there are interesting things that you can do around State College that help you stand out even more than just the standard consulting club or case competition or whatever, right? Or you're the president of your fraternity or sorority, right? Just look for those fun, unique things, and those will really stand out on your resume too, because that's what my eye gets drawn towards personally.
We do a lot of resume review right now. We're hiring for a few roles, and some of the things I'm looking for are transferable skills. So if I know that right now I need someone who is excellent at Excel. And so, right, if you come from with an accounting background, I'm going to know, okay, you will probably be able to move very quick in Excel and work at the different formulas and pivot tables and learn it pretty quickly. And so think to yourself also, what are the transferable skills that my undergrad and my course load is going to offer me moving forward? I think the point around like leadership opportunities and different sorts of experiences. And I think what oftentimes folks coming out of undergrad might miss is, and then the so what that comes out of that of I did this thing and therefore I got these experiences or I got this skill or I did X, Y, or Z or I learned this. I think sometimes a lot of folks in their undergraduate degree just start to load up their resume or just for the sake of loading it up because they feel like they need to stand out. Do it with intentionality, right? What's the story you want to tell? Who do you, you know, who do you want, how do you want to show up on paper? But then when you have a conversation, um, what do you want that conversation to sound like? I mean, one of the things that I did in undergrad was I was on the fencing team. I did not fence a day in my life until I took the gym class my sophomore year. And then long story short, I ended up on the fencing team. And that makes for a great story and the experiences I've had there of like, I am absolutely not an Olympic athlete, but I got to fence with Olympic athletes. And I got to support them. And I got to, test them on the strip in a way that maybe someone with more experience might not have had. So think to yourself, what's the story I want to tell with things that I'm doing and really have an intentionality and passion for it, not just got to load up the resume.
And Lily's comment about course load is actually a really good one as well. Not necessarily in helping you stand out, but making sure you're taking the right classes, right? So, if you're graduating next week, it's a little too late. But for everyone else, right, thinking to yourself as you are signing up for classes, oh, how does this help advance my professional career later, right? I remember being a CAS major. There was a speech writing class, and that required us to go up in front of the whole class every Friday or whatever and give a speech in front of the class, right? Every single week for the whole semester. That really hones your public speaking skills, right? Thinking about different economics classes. I think it was Econ 351, Money and Banking, teaches you all about like the macro stock market, the Federal Reserve, right? Just these important pieces of information that help you know how society works and in turn how businesses work.
Thank you so much for all of your answers. I'm just going to have one more to wrap things up as we are a little past time. And my last question for all of you is just, do you have one last piece of advice for the students on this call today?
I think we hit a lot of the really good pieces of advice over the past 45 minutes. I think just as we close this out, some of the skills that you all need to know, right, are really those critical thinking skills, being able to connect those dots, right? Having really good time management. You're going to be pulled in a lot of different directions. We've talked about it a lot. Be eager to learn. Every industry is different. You will be expected to know a whole new client or a whole new industry in a couple weeks, right? And really the teaming portion of it. I think one of my biggest shocks, even going from Penn State to the professional world, is you are literally always working with a team. So having those good connections and being able to work with people efficiently and effectively is really, really important. And it's not like, you're not getting a grade. You're doing this for yourself, your salary, right? Your own career progression. So the whole way you advance or change how you work in a team is totally different in the career space as it is in the academic space.
chime in with listen to the universe. Like there are these little things that all along the way you may not like if you're too focused and on what you think it's exactly what you want, you might miss out on some really interesting opportunities as it comes to consulting, as it comes to gaining that business acumen and connecting those dots. Um, and so a mentor said to me once, don't be a jellyfish, right? Don't just go with wherever the tide takes you. You got to have intentionality. You got to have some purpose and thought behind why you're doing certain things. But don't shut yourself out to the opportunities the universe might be presenting you along the way. That's not necessarily a skill. That's more just final advice. Also, like enjoy being an undergrad because that stuff is really fun.
Lily, that just inspired what my answer now is, which is just, if this is something that you think you might be interested in, start having the conversations coming out of, today's panel. Reach out to one of us, reach out to someone on LinkedIn, connect with Dana and Lauren to see if there's someone you can get connected with. Just start having conversations and learning more, and just exploring what your options are. Anecdotally, my new company I just joined, I had a Penn State alum reach out to me 4 years ago about the company, and I took the call, and then we kept in touch, but nothing ever really came back of it. And more recently, when I was looking for roles and I reached back out to my Penn State network, everything worked out. The timing was right. I was in a better place just in terms of where I was living and my personal situation. So I think just always being open to conversations, open to learning more, making those connections throughout your network, because you never know where it's going to lead you.
Wow, absolutely amazing advice. Thank you so much. Truly apologize going over on time here a little bit. We had some last minute Q&A questions there. Lauren, also thank you again for posting in the chat and answering some of the questions that might have came through there. Thank you so much, Lily, Michael, and Abby. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you. We hope that you are now in our Penn State network, and if you're ever here on campus, you stop in and see us. Thank you to Paris and Lauren and all the students here. Good luck on finals. This is the start for you, so come and see us here in the Career Enrichment Network, and we hope you have a wonderful summer. Thank you again.
Thanks everyone.
Awesome. Thanks so much.